You mentioned the crisis, financial crisis of 2008, and you referred, I believe, to the mortgage-backed securities crisis, which threw people out of their homes. Now, and this is global. It wasn't just in the United States. It was in Europe and in the entire West. The financial banking system is the Western financial banking system has become a casino. What you had in the past, before 1999, the banking system was different in the United States and in Europe. You had a separation between commercial banks and investment banks. And in the United States, you had a policy called Glass-Steagall, a law. And under that law, the commercial banks could not engage in speculation. They could not take someone's mortgage and securitize it. It was very simple at that time. You got a housing mortgage from a bank, and every month you paid your mortgage fee. And if you came to a problem, you go down to the bank and you talk to the banker about it. That changed, and all the banks became investment banks. And that led to these huge banks, and particularly in Europe, which have assets on their books that are more than the GDPs of their countries. But this was pure speculation, and it collapsed. Now, what my friends in the United States and here in Europe, my political friends in the Schiller Institute, they proposed again to reintroduce bank separation. And this would have a profound impact, not just on the banking system, but on the political power that these financial interests held, because they could not make the huge amounts of money that they've been making through this speculation. So one way to deal with that is to introduce this type of legislation, where you get back to actual banking, commercial banking without speculation. Now, this had an effect. This speculation has a direct effect on Africa and countries that in Africa and Latin America who have to borrow dollar-backed or hard currency-backed loans. This drove their interest rates up, and their loans themselves became objects of speculation. For instance, if you look at the debt structures of these many countries in Africa that have to go to the IMF to arrange a bailout of some sorts, what you find is that the money is owed not to the original bank or the original group that the loan came from, but that loan was already sold to someone else, and now you're paying someone else, and this makes the situation even worse. So we need this type of banking reform, because if we get the West back to this type of banking, then we will stabilize the economy. And of course, the other side of it is that the most radical right-wing elements, war party elements, are linked to these financial institutions. If you look at Germany, you have this Chancellor, Merz, who thinks I don't know who he thinks he is, but he talks about, we have to go to war in 5 years, but we got to make Germany the most powerful country, military in Europe. Well, this guy comes from BlackRock. He was many people probably know what BlackRock is. It's one of the biggest investment holdings in the world.
$11 trillion.
Yeah. And this is who Mertz is, right? And if you go, I mean, even Trump has this problem. He is from New York, and he has top financiers as cabinet ministers. There's tremendous interest. These financiers finance the right wing, the war party think tanks. There's a tremendous amount of power because they have all this money, which is really not solid money, to say the least. And at this point, we can see before us a possible financial collapse, like we saw in 2008, but much worse.
Yeah.
So that's what the situation is. I believe in this whole, when you look at the financial situation, and the effects that has on people.
Hey, Dean, it's 13.46 trillion in assets that BlackRock manages. 13.46 trillion.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
I had to check on that.
Actually,
I totally believe you.
Yeah.
You know, there was a time when a chancellor in Germany had always been a politician. You know, he was you have, I think, 14 different states in Germany. And usually it was before he became chancellor, he was like the premier of one of these states. I mean, they were always involved in politics.
Right.
So they were much closer to the population. But now these guys are parachuted in from BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, you name it.
Yeah.
Back in 1960, just as he left office, was leaving office, then President Dwight D. Eisenhower warned the country of the military, what he coined the phrase, the military industrial complex. And that's what the military is. And in reality, it's not really military or industrial, it's financial. In the sense that it's the most powerful interest in the country tend to be the financial sector. And they're the ones that actually captured defense policy, so to speak, for their own purposes. And they created this, because it's not just building weapons, it's creating an entire militaristic ideology. And this is the big problem. Making weapons in itself is not it's an industrial thing. It's probably a waste of money. But as people have said in the past, it's the whole question of intent. And in the United States, it really dramatically changed American society, the whole Cold War. The United States, prior to World War II, always had a very small, not always, but it quite often had a big navy. But the military was extremely small, and it only expanded in time of war. And after World War II, this changed with this Cold War. And we have similar problems, and of course in a different way, in other countries. The problem in Africa, of course, is outside interests financing insurgencies. We have a problem in Sudan, as everyone knows. It's the government on the one hand, led by General Burhan. Many people might not like this government, but it's the government's there, and then you have the so-called rapid support forces.
Sure.
Are totally financed out of the United Arab Emirates. And if you read analysts, they will say, well, the UAE is fronting for the British. And in fact, that is the case. So if you pulled out these foreign interests, which are generally old imperialists, you might be able to get a solution to these problems. Harley brought up the question of the Treaty of Westphalia, where you had a 30 years war, a religious war, and it ravaged Europe. I mean, it reduced the population significantly. And the warring powers came together. I think it lasted 3 years, the conference. And they hammered out a peace agreement. The fundamental principle was that each nation should look towards the interests of the other nation. And that's precisely what international affairs should be based on at this point. And economically, it's clear. I mean, a vibrant, unified continental Africa on the world stage would be a tremendous effect on world peace. And it would provide a tremendous economic partner for Europe and the United States, where, it won't be this zero-sum game, but it'll be two countries cooperating in developing each other. Because world trade has been hijacked by the financial system, and it is utilized for speculation, commodity speculation in particular. But world trade should be part of the division of labor, where countries cooperate for the development of one another. And this is the only way you're going to guarantee the end of war. And this is what we need now. I mean, a former colleague said, one of our colleagues, Ms. Berg said that pointed to a statement by Vice President Vance about Russia and Ukraine cooperating economically, and there's no reason for not, because they were cooperating for 1,000 years before the NATO expansion policy, and this is the only. I believe this is the only way out, the only way to stop this